Story 1. My mom called me a loser when I was 30. I was definitely not the best person in the world, but a loser. I will never forget that. I have my life pretty well together now. I lost a lot of weight in my late 30s. I went from 250 to 185 pounds through mountain biking. I felt great about myself. I heard my dad tell my brother, "It won't last, he will get fat again." That still bothers me to this day. Story 2. My mom made me feel worthless and unlovable throughout my childhood. She would say, "I can't wait until you have a girl just like you, so you'll know how awful you were." I was just an adventurous and independent, nature-loving, wild little girl. I am pregnant right now, and I hope it's a girl. I will love her for real. Story 3. You will never get married. You cannot handle a little complaining. You will never be able to live with a woman. Story 4. It is the unsaid things I have found to be the most upsetting, and I do not mean "I love you." I mean basic things like, "Are you okay?" Story 5. I don't want to deal with you anymore. I have your sisters to worry about, said Mom, who then called Child Protective Services crying, saying I was too much of a problem to handle and asked if she could give me up for adoption. This was all in response to 7 or 8-year-old me threatening to run away again because my mom was unkind to the people she was supposed to love the most. In any case, Child Protective Services sent a representative to talk with her and me at 1 a.m. and temporarily resolve the issue. After she left, my mom ended the night by saying, "See, you need to change. Even they don't want such a problem child." Story 6. I don't love you. I just tolerate you. Nothing hurts a child more than realizing that even home was never safe. Story 7. My mom first called me a mean name when I was in the 4th grade. I always felt like I was the punching bag. If they were having a bad day, they would be mad at me for something, anything. Story 8. I am driving on the opposite side of the road, and I hope it kills us both. My father was driving me to school when he found out my mother was having an affair that morning. I was a senior in high school. Story 9. When my grandmother was in the living room with my aunt, she cried that I was going to be an asshole someday. Story 10. My mother once said, "I only keep you around because you are the smartest of my children, and I am hoping you get a scholarship. I still wish I had a son." Story 11. When your mother kills herself, it will be your fault. It devastated me. I caught him cheating and told her. I almost broke when she eventually did try, and fail, to kill herself. I am still working through that, among many other things, in therapy. Some people should not be parents. Story 12. My mom was pro-college. When I went to technical school, she said I was ruining my life. I did not care. Now I make over $100,000 a year and have no student loan debt. We have a great relationship, and that was many years ago. Story 13. I was about 10 days postpartum, give or take. Exhausted wouldn't even begin to describe me. They were so focused on my baby being breastfed because that is just what you do. Zero support. Lots of comments like, "My husband never lost a wink of sleep, and we all did it with nothing, so you can too," and so on. I even got judged for falling behind on my laundry. I cried and said, "I just can't do all of this," and then made my baby a bottle of formula. My mom said without hesitation, "Oh, so you don't want to be his mom then? That will stay with me forever." That was absolutely not how I felt, not what I was saying, and so invalidating to the moment and what was really going on. Story 14. You don't think your father and I still have sexual relations? Right after they told me I was going to be a big brother as a senior in high school. Story 15. I became pregnant at 15. At the time, there was a law in my state that allowed a minor to petition a judge for the right to terminate a pregnancy without parental consent. My mother found out afterward and told me, "If I knew you were pregnant, I would have made you have that baby and give it to a couple who could not have their own." It still breaks my heart that she would not have supported me after I made a difficult mistake. Story 16. My dad called me dumb shit until the day he died. I was the child from the affair that ended his marriage, so he never liked me. Story 17. I may have to love you because you were my son, but to be honest, I have never liked you all that much. Something my mother said in an argument over politics when I was in college. Story 18. They promised to give me a mobile phone if I could pass the examination, but in the end, they did not give it to me. Story 19. Once you throw something in the trash, it is not yours. It is public, and anyone can freely access it. My mom said this to me after taking some very personal notes out of the trash can from my own room and reading them. I confronted her about invading my privacy yet again. She tried to excuse it by saying she did it and kept the notes because she wanted to help, but she never even brought up anything regarding that topic. This was not the worst thing, but it pushed me over the edge and made me become an overly private person on an unhealthy level. I am not even comfortable with small things like sharing my music with my partner, and it made me not want to ever talk to her about anything important that happens in my life. Story 20. A little over 2.5 years ago, I came out to my family and told them about my boyfriend I had for 2 years. In a strange out-of-order compliment sandwich, my dad told me he still loved me and wanted me to feel like I could still talk to him, but that he was never going to treat him the same way as my sister's fiancé, now husband, or my brother's girlfriend, now fiancé. He said I could just give up on thinking that. I don't know if it's some misguided upbringing I haven't realized yet, religious trauma, or something else, but I have trouble being completely mad at him consistently. I know he had a much worse childhood than I did, and that he put everything he had into giving me a better life than he had. My mom too, but she still had a loving family. I also know he attributes all of it to God changing him for the better, so I think on some level he's afraid of what will happen if he breaks away from what he believes is God's will. But other times, a small, dark part of me suspects he doesn't think I've inherited some of his steadfastness and is ready to give me a rude awakening. Story 21. Not my mother but her mother said to 7-year-old me, "You use the back door, not the front. The front door is for people and you are not one." I am still trying to figure out what I am 60 years later. Story 22. There is a lot, but the relatively recent one that was devastatingly destabilizing was, while scoffing and laughing in a sardonic way, "You are incapable of empathy." Her reasoning was that if I were empathetic, I would know how burdensome I am and how miserable it makes her, and I would stop being a burden. I am disabled and chronically ill. I cannot afford to move out, and especially cannot afford to hire a support worker. Story 23. I came home from work. I was 13 years old. Yes, I had a job at 13. So, I saw my belongings on the porch with a note saying I no longer live here or am part of the family. The house was cleared out and no one was around. I slept outside that night over 20 years ago. Story 24. I lost a tennis match, and my dad drove to my sister's grave. He told me I should be there instead, that he wished I was the one dead because my sister would have made something of herself. I was 9. Story 25. I wish you would leave me alone so I can live my life in peace. The next time you come back, I will be dead. Story 26. When I was about 13 or 14, my mother told me I was fat because I ate too much pasta. As a 13-year-old, I clearly wasn't doing the meal planning. She then proceeded to shame me at the dinner table in front of my little brothers and father. What made it worse was that I wasn't really fat, just bulky, and I hadn't hit my growth spurt yet. I entered high school at about 5 feet 3 inches and graduated at a perfectly average 5 feet 11 inches. 165 pounds, a 3-sport varsity athlete. My mom is still the same angry, overweight woman, but I love her all the same. I brought this up to her not long ago when she was going for seconds, and she denied it until my father and brother confirmed it. She felt terrible about it and said it was because she was worried I would have weight issues like hers. I understand the sentiment. She's just never been very poetic in expressing her feelings, to say it kindly. Story 27. Me. Mom. I need to talk about that time when I was 13 and your partner assaulted me at the dinner table until I was screaming in agony and fear, and you just stared at your dinner plate. Then after he threw me into my chair and berated me for a while, he pulled me up and assaulted me again until I screamed, and you just continued to stare at your dinner plate. Mom. I don't remember what you're talking about. Story 28. My mom said, "You are full of nonsense and useless." When I was around 5, my dad said, You are very annoying. So get out, or must I make you get out? When I was 11. My dad once tried hitting me with a metal bat when I was 4. I grew up in a broken household with many more terrible things than this. Story 29. Telling my father that I was struggling with depression, he was shocked and said, "I thought we did a good job." It was not an insult or criticism, just guilt. It broke my heart. My parents did nothing wrong. My brain is just unusual. He ended up doing research on it, and now he understands. Still, the way he said it makes me very sad anytime I think about it. Story 30. The sperm donor implied I was promiscuous for talking to a classmate I knew in high school who was attending the same community college. I was raised religiously, so any interaction outside of congregation members was heavily scrutinized. He was picking me up and saw me talking to him with a wide gap between us. Not even close. Mind you, I was still a virgin. When I was 16, his wife found my torn-up book of poetry in the trash and showed it to him. They called a family meeting and told me I was self-pitying or something similar. Poetry was and still is my outlet. Never mind the fact that I was going through depression that had recently been diagnosed. Instead of trying to understand, he just made me feel worse. I have not talked to him in 13 years for numerous reasons. Story 31. I don't know if it's the worst because he has said many hurtful things to me over the years, so it's hard to pinpoint. Today, I didn't answer my dad right away because I was thinking, and he said, "I asked you a question." A few hours later, I told him I was upset and asked him not to talk to me like that. He responded by saying, "Grow up." Actually, that's probably not even close to the worst thing he's ever said to me. I can't think of what that would be though. I'm really upset at the moment. Story 32. I told her I was sexually assaulted at a party because she wanted to know why a friend's mother called her asking if I was okay. Her response was, "What is everyone going to think of you now?" Story 33. I was born with a cleft lip. My mother told me that my father sobbed and cried when I was born, left the hospital, and did not come back for a couple of days. She told me this after they got divorced, to make me hate him like she did. Story 34. I was a chubby little girl, and I was trying on clothes when I heard a lady say to my mom, "She has such a pretty face. It's a shame she's so heavy." My mom stood there and agreed with her. I never felt pretty again, even when I was modeling or when I won a scholarship to one of the best ballet schools in America. My granddaughter is my twin, and I always address her as, "Hello, beautiful." She will never have to feel like I did. Story 35. I'll take a pic, but I forcibly had to move out when I was 18 and into university accommodation. I didn't even want to go to university, but that ship sailed. Prior to that, I had said multiple times I wished to start a part-time job to earn some money to start saving. Anyway, I remember her sitting down with me and saying, "We're only doing this because it's our way out." I struggled heavily with depression and anxiety living in the hostile environment at the time, so I guess it was a ticket out of it all. Story 36. My mom said I am going to end up useless. She said this on the night of my birthday when I did not have money to give her for alcohol. Story 37. Trigger warning. I am a lesbian. I have tried to talk to my father about life multiple times. After my separation and divorce, I told him that sometimes a girl needs to talk to her father. He said, "I love you, but I hate an offensive slur." It has been rockier than ever since then. Story 38. He said it was too bad he could not divorce his children. I was 8 when he said this. I have never forgotten it. I am 67 now. Story 39. When I was 14, in front of my sister and her 3 young children, my mother screamed on the phone to my therapist's receptionist, "I can't wait till my name is dead in a ditch." She had said similar things a few other times, expressing how excited she was for me to die. That was probably the worst time, though. I couldn't go back to that therapist's office because I was too embarrassed by my mother's behavior to even see that poor receptionist again. Story 40. My mother said to me in high school that if I went to college, I would not be smart enough to graduate. This affected me for years. Story 41. Your legs look like tree stumps, and you look like a 2-ton Tootsie. Can lead to a lifetime of body image issues. Story 42. that I would end up like my birth mother, that I was manipulative and selfish. I was 14 and asked to attend a high school event that they did not have to provide transportation for or pay for. When I announced my pregnancy, my mother, and told her that my sister had offered to host a shower at my parents' house, my mother viciously replied, "I am not doing a shower." I just nodded and moved on. But in my head, I was sobbing. I helped this woman host showers for people she did not even like. I hosted a shower for my brother when he became a father at 42. Both of them had initially declined, but my mother refused to take no for an answer. That was the day I realized that my parents do not really like me as a person, and my whole heart broke. I cried about it for months. Years later, I realized that I was grieving. A lot changed after that. I see them once or twice a year these days. Everyone is better off. They can live with their son, who has struggled with addiction, and his 2 children. He robbed them when my father was in the hospital after a heart attack. Story 43. I don't recall my parents saying anything really mean to me. The worst thing I heard was when my dad told me his plan for suicide if his medical condition worsened. He had clearly given it a lot of thought. Story 44. I got into an argument with my father, and he said, "You are just my sperm, you should listen to me." That was about 3 years ago. Every day I regret not punching him on the spot. Story 45. I went to visit my father for the summer when I was 8 and told him I did not want to go back to my mother because of my abusive stepfather. My biological mother made sure to tell me that my stepfather almost killed her and my sister, and that it was my fault for looking out for myself first. When I say I have a hard time putting myself first to this day. Story 46. For someone so intelligent, you can be very foolish. It also shows how much they disliked each other after their divorce. Story 47. You were a surprise baby. I have an older brother who was born in 1978, and I was born in 1991. Somehow, I became the surprise baby. Story 48. The first thing that came to my mind was that my dad told me, "Your birthday is not about you. It's about your mother because she gave birth to you. They wonder why I do not want to spend time with them." Story 49. Either the countless times my father has said he does not see me as part of his family, or the first time I tried to kill myself and he always thought I was just overreacting and being ridiculous. Story 50. I am 27 now, and these few words still live in my head rent-free. For context, I had my first child at 15. When I was 16, we were really struggling just to keep food in the house. It was just me, my mom, my 9-year-old brother, and my 1-year-old. We were talking about what we were going to do for food that day, and my mom said in the nastiest way possible, "I know what I'm feeding my child today. I don't know about yours," referring to her own granddaughter. That broke my heart. I still think about it. Story 51. My sister died when I was 1 year old. She was 3. One drunken night, my father said I should have been the one who died because he loved my sister very much. I was in my 20s then. It shattered me. I have never looked at my father the same since. Story 52. Why do you keep torturing us like this? I tried to ask my father a simple question about my internet bill. Story 53. I was diagnosed as autistic as an adult, but as a child, I was mostly ignored and left to my own devices. My parents did not know how to deal with me. I was very shy. I did not like going out with friends, and I did not have friends. I had my books and my journals. My parents struggled to understand me and mostly ignored me. I was sexually abused by an older cousin for most of my childhood. This caused random outbursts of frustration and jealousy toward my siblings because they were not abused and were favored by my parents. My parents did not know about the abuse until I was in my mid-20s. During one of my outbursts, I would become nonverbal, which upset my parents. One time, my father said, "You better stop this, or we will give you up for adoption." That comment stayed with me for years. It showed me exactly how my parents felt about me as a child. I know I was difficult, but I did not think I was that difficult. Back then, they did not know much about autism in girls. I was the middle child, and my parents always told me that I was being difficult because I was the middle child. That is the worst thing my parents have ever said to me. Story 54. I wish you were not my son. I am adopted. It was spoken in a moment of extreme tension and stress between my father and me. He was an absolutely incredible man. He passed away in 2023. At the time he said this, I believe he was really disappointed in me and the direction my life was going. Took me a long time to get my life together. That conversation still sticks with me to this day. Story 55, you're fat, it is your fault, they helped you, and so much more from literally this week asking me when I am going to give up and stop wasting their time and my time. If I give up, I will die. I have a long list of acute problems right now and am trying to survive. Message me and I will send it. Story 56. Get away from me. I don't even remember what I did. But she was so mad she ignored me the whole day. I tried to hug her to get her attention, and she said this and pushed me away. Story 57. I hoped you would have been more feminine. I worked in construction. Basically, I wasn't the girl child she hoped for. Story 58. My dad told me I was weak because I showed my emotions to others, even though I am a man. This happened during a heated argument when he asked why I never talked to my family. They often dismissed my emotions whenever I tried to open up, and he was abusive. He disowned me that day, and I never looked back. Our relationship was not significant anyway. Story 59. My dad practically begged me to try out for football. I did, and I was bullied by the team so badly that I quit the next day. He didn't care about that. He called me into my parents' bedroom, chewed me out, called me a quitter, and refused to listen to my side, all while lying in bed with the television remote in his hand. A close second is when I told him I was transferring to a bigger and better university. The first thing he said was, I'm not paying for that. I wasn't going to ask him to. I had already taken out loans. The second was him happily telling me that if I moved out of my mom's place, he would no longer have to pay child support. Story 60. Brown cows make chocolate milk. I believed that until I was 20 years old. My high school best friend had to break the news that brown cows do not make chocolate milk. I have been living with this discovery for only 6 years so far. Still blows my mind. Story 61. My mom pointed out my stretch marks when I was about 13, and to this day, I am still very self-conscious about them. Story 62. I never wanted you. If I ever wanted a child, I wanted it to be a boy, my mother said when I was a little girl. Years later, I asked her at Christmas why she was so mean and verbally abusive towards me. Her girlfriend told me, because she likes watching you squirm and enjoys using you as a verbal punching bag. My mother just smiled and laughed. Story 63. My dad, who is chronically homeless and has significant mental health issues, told me when I was pregnant that I was worthless and a waste of his life. Story 64. I have social anxiety and have been struggling in life because of it. One time, when I was 16 and having a fight with my little brother, my mom stopped us and said, "Stop messing with your younger siblings, or in your next life, you will be reborn like this again," while pointing at me. That was rough. People can say the meanest things when they are angry. Story 65. They each called me names which I do not remember now. An incident that has stuck with me is when my father, in a fit of rage, repeatedly hit me. Each time I tried to back away, he got closer and kept hitting me while yelling. When I defended myself by holding his hands to stop him from striking me again, he told every relative that I hit him. I will never forgive him for that. Story 66. I mean, there has been a lot, but I think what hurt the most for the longest time was the silence. I stood in silence while my abusive father screamed at me for what I wrote about his abuse in my diary. He told me I was a liability and a man-hater, that I would ruin the whole family's reputation, that I was just like my mother, and accused me of facilitating my own rape, which was committed by my uncle when I was 5. He said I was good for nothing, all while my mother just stood there and let me endure it. For a long time, I protected my mother and dismissed this because she was also being actively abused by him. Eventually, I realized that never once, if we talked about what happened afterward, would she say he was wrong. She would always justify his behavior. I know that is a common pattern with abuse victims, but I was a child. I needed my mother to protect me, not to tell me all the things I could have done to avoid the abuse. Story 67. I much prefer you as an adult and having a beer than when you were a child. I idolized him as a child. He did not realize how inappropriate it was to say that. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.